What we're going to do in this video is we're going to create a HelloWorld console application, and then we're going to publish it to our GitHub repository. So the first thing, you want to make sure that you have a GitHub account set up. And so what you can do is go ahead and just log into your GitHub account. And I have mine here, CEDANIE2, and I don't have much on here, just my research repository that I don't have anything there. And so it's a pretty clean account I'm starting with here. And so you want to log in. By logging in, you could observe how Visual Studio is creating the repository and synchronizing the code, conducting push operations, and so forth. So the purpose of this video is just to show you the example, a very simple example. So when we open up Visual Studio, this is the Community Edition, Visual Studio 2017. And I've already got the Git and GitHub extension for Visual Studio installed. And so it's important to understand that we have local Git repository, and then we have our GitHub account that is available via the web. And so the local has its default directory in this path, so C users, and then the local account. My local account is Clinton, source, and repos. So that's the local repository for my source code that Visual Studio will create. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create just a simple HelloWorld console app. And the easiest way to do that, to demonstrate this entire process, is we come up here to File, New Project. Under C# for our installed templates, we want to just select Visual C#. We come down to console app.NET Core. And so what we do with this, if we come down here, we'll just name this Hello World. And if you don't see this path, you can browse to that path on your local system. So you would just go to C, users, your profile name, source, repos. We'll keep the same name of our solution, the same name of our project. You may not see this checked by default, create new Git repository, but we'll just click that checkbox. We'll also create a directory for our solution, which will go in this path. Once we do that, we'll just say OK, and Visual Studio will do the work to create our project. Okay, now the first thing that we want to do, if we haven't already, is we can connect to GitHub. Right now I am not logged into GitHub, so your default may show this Solution Explorer. There's also this tab here that says Team Explorer. There's multiple ways of doing this. This is just one way. If you're already connected, there actually was an opportunity when you first opened Visual Studio to connect to GitHub, but I'm just showing you one way you can do it if you haven't already. If you go to Team Explorer, you'll see this GitHub, and we click this connect link. It then opens up the sign in for GitHub, and I'm just going to sign in with my account. And click this sign in button, and if I typed my password incorrectly, it signs me in. So I'm currently signed into GitHub, and right now notice that using that template, Visual Studio has already created a class, in my Solution Explorer here, it's created a single class, a C# file, and in that it just has a single line of code in my main method, which is my constructor method, and it's just using the system objects available in the .NET framework. My namespace is the same name as my project, my solution, and I'm using the class program, which is our console application, and I just have one line of code in my main method, and that is what will be executed by default when the application runs. So I'm just going to add a little bit of code here. I want you to pay attention that right now, again, I have a local repository and we have a web-based repository. Now, as we make changes, you'll see how we synchronize those changes to our local repository and then push them to our GitHub repository. So I'm just going to create a line of code here, and I'll just put a comment here, pause to display hello world, and give some instructions to the user. And let's just tell them to press any key to continue. And remember, with C#, we have to end our lines in a semicolon. So you see here how we do a single comment by a // We could have done a multi-line comment with a /**/, which allows it to do multiple lines. And then we're just going to add one more line here that's going to tell the console to read from what the user types in a key. Essentially, the user hits any key, and if they hit any key, in other words, that tests a true, then the application will end. So that's really all we're doing. If you come up here to this build menu and you click build solution, you could also shortcut hit F6 if you wanted. Down here below, you will see the output of the build, where we're looking to see that the program properly compiled with no errors, and you can see here that the build succeeded. I can then run the application by just clicking this Hello World debugger button that runs it. So the application is running in debug mode, and it just says press any key to continue, writes out to the console hello world, and it's awaiting on a keyboard input response. So I just hit any key on my keyboard and it ends the application, and that's it. So that's really all it does. So now that we've got our hello world application, what we want to do is we want to publish it to our local repository and then push it to our GitHub. So right now, if you look here, it's created a directory for our project in our local repository, and I can synchronize changes that have been made first to the local GitHub. So all we need to do, if you look over here to the right, the default view shows the Solution Explorer here. We can just click on this Team Explorer option. And so when we do that, we have a drop down here, and your default might show Connect. And what I want to do is click Sync right there. And I have the ability, if I scroll down, you'll see Publish to GitHub. And so we do that, and since I'm already logged in, it recognized that I have a GitHub account with this user identity. I simply put in a description, and we'll just call this version 1 of Hello World, and then I can publish that to, and it will create a repository. So we hope to see a repository successfully created in our GitHub account. So we can come over here, and I'm logged in. If you click on this little GitHub icon upper left-hand corner is an easy way to navigate. You will see that there is a HelloWorld repository, but let's take a look. When we click on this, we see, so the default, there's a couple of files that would be there by default. This get ignore file was there, this get attributes was there. Really what it added was this solution file and HelloWorld directory. And you'll notice that that is the same. If we come here to Solution Explorer, that's essentially what we have going on here. It can also be seen in our local repository. We have these files right here. So let's take a look at what happened here. And if we open up here in GitHub, we see, oops, let me go back one, clicked on the wrong file there. And we go to our program.cs, we see the code, but notice it doesn't show the changes that we've made here. So how do we deal with that? So it was keeping track of changes because we have a local instance, a local repository. What we need to do is we need to publish those changes. So what's sitting right here in Team Explorer, you see the project has a changes option here. And what it gives you an opportunity is to publish those changes. And we could make a comment here if we would want to make a comment and just say whatever version 2, hello world. And we could commit all of those changes right there. And that committed all of the changes to our local repository. And as it says right here, and then we could synchronize those changes to our GitHub account. So click sync. And it's now sitting in a commit, ready to go for a commit. And all we do is just push this under outgoing commits. There is this push, and that will send out version 2 of Hello World. Off it goes. You'll see this pushing the current branch of our changes from our local instance of Git out to our GitHub. And we go back over here. Go back and we will see, look at that, version 2 of Hello World. Click on program.cs and look at that. There are our changes that we've made to our program. So that's the basics of creating a Hello World console application, saving it to your local repository, synchronizing changes to your local repository, creating a repository on GitHub, uploading your project to GitHub, and synchronizing the changes by pushing the changes to GitHub.